Hey there, Krista here. I'm excited to intro you into today's Minisode. Sometimes we don't have 20-30 minutes to dive into a topic, but we just want something short that can help us to shift our perspective and to see things from a different light. And that's exactly what we're going to do in today's episode. So I'm excited for you to dive in, and I'd love to hear your takeaways. Let's go. First things first, the thing that I kind of want to chat through is obviously one of the most helpful things that you can do with goal setting is to start getting comfortable with zooming out on your goals and really starting to get clarity around what is my long-term vision. And I think that sometimes there are two types of people. There are people who are really good in the visionary side of their business. There are people who can easily sit back, dream up the big goals, dream up where they want to go, and that part feels easy to them. There are other people who have been so in the weeds for so long in the day-to-day tasks, the day-to-day activities to just keep their business alive and going, that they just haven't built up that muscle to be able to see clearly that bigger, zoomed out, long-term vision that they have. But I want to stress that no matter what kind of side of that you fall into, this is a really important thing to allow yourself to do on a regular basis in your business. Because honestly, if we're not giving ourselves the space to be able to dream up where we want to go, we're going to struggle with feeling like we're really making progress or seeing success in our business, because if we're constantly just measuring success as these day-to-day things, we're going to feel like we're just constantly spinning our wheels and not really getting anywhere. And so if you struggle with, I feel like I don't know what my bigger vision is, or I don't know how to think about where I want to be in 5 or 10 years, a few things that I want to encourage you to ask yourself is, what are your values, right? What are things that are important to you? Are you also working full time in let's say a corporate job or in some other job and wanting to build your business so that you can have more time freedom, so that you can, take weekdays off to go to your kids' sports games or take them to certain practices, right? Is time freedom important to you as a business owner? Are you looking to grow a business where you can also travel and work remotely all of the time? Even though now we're in a kind of a world where in a corporate world, you can work remotely, you're still on someone else's time, right? You're still having to abide by someone else's schedule. So maybe that true freedom in remote work and, getting to travel and explore, maybe that is something that's really important to you. But asking yourself, if you're struggling to figure out that longer term vision of where you want to go, figuring out what is it that's actually important to you. And that'll help you figure out, okay, knowing that, how can I create a business that honors that? How can I create a business that allows me to, do those things on a regular basis? Let's say one of your goals was you wanted to be a speaker at a very certain, well-known conference, whatever it is, whatever industry it is. Let's say there's this conference where the best of the best speakers speak at. And that is your goal. That is the big thing that you are working towards. Figuring out the next question of, okay, why is it that this is so important to me? What are the feelings that this is going to evoke, right? Is it going to make me feel accepted in my industry? Is that the bigger thing that I'm chasing? Is that why this goal is so important to me? Is it going to make me feel like my family and others around me are proud of me? Is that why I want to speak at this conference, right? Is it something where I will feel like I finally made it in my business, right? I'll feel like I am officially a leader within my industry if I actually get chosen to speak at this conference, right? It's so great to figure out those bigger goals and what it is that you want to do, but then digging that layer deeper of figuring out why. Why is that important? Why is this going to be something that's going to be so life-changing and such a big deal for you? What are the feelings and the experiences that will evoke inside of you? And I think that this question is really important Because let's say, for example, you spend 5 years working towards this goal, right? You imagine it's going to produce this certain type of feeling. You imagine it's going to provide this certain experience for you. And let's say the moment finally comes and maybe it doesn't hit all of your expectations that you had hoped, right? What we don't want is to spend so much time chasing after a certain thing or a certain physical or experience that we're going to have and not recognize the deeper experience, because chances are that deeper experience, you might be able to start feeling that now. It may not take you 5 years to feel like a leader in your industry, right? Like working towards this big goal of getting on this conference, however long it takes you to achieve that, you might be able to start feeling those feelings now. There might be things that I as a coach can help my clients work on, where it's like those feelings that you're searching for in this bigger goal. How can we start to break those down and actually start to experience them now? So that way we're not just waiting on this one event or this one experience to finally start feeling what it is that we want to be feeling. And so really, it requires digging a little bit deep and getting really honest with yourself. So don't expect that, maybe you sit down and ask yourself this question and maybe you struggle figuring out that answer. It's okay. You may not sit down in one sitting and immediately have this answer, but starting to get comfortable with getting that inner clarity of what is it that this actually means to me? And how can I maybe start experiencing that now instead of thinking that I need to have X event or X experience in order to feel it? This is a big one. I think if you take away one thing, if you take away 2 things from this episode, number 1, figuring out the bigger feeling behind your goals, right? What is it that you want to experience and feel inside? And how can we start to experience that now? And then this one, right? How can we have a clear idea of where we want to go, but release the grip a little bit on exactly how we're going to get there? Because sometimes when we have this clear set path in our head that we think is going to be the one way of us achieving this goal, we close ourselves off to all of the other avenues and opportunities and ways that we can get there that actually feel good, that make us feel excited and inspired to work towards it. So those are kind of the 2 big ones. But the last one that I want to share quickly is just figuring out, how are you keeping track of your tasks that you want to work on, right? The priority tasks, and your brainstorming of creative ideas and things that you want to do in your business. Because a lot of times when our systems aren't in place in a way that feels good to us, goal setting can feel really hard. So if you do have really big goals, right? If you have things that you're chasing after, if you're brainstorming and figuring out where you might want to go in your business and the route that you may want to take, how are you tracking these things? And does it feel good when you use that tracker? Or are there things that you're you know what? Actually, I feel some dread or some hesitation or some resistance around how I'm tracking this. Because if that's the case, then figuring out, how can I change this so that it actually feels good? How can I change it so that I actually feel more clear and feel excited, like I'm actually making progress towards whatever it is that I want to do? One last thing before you go, I'd absolutely love it if you left a review on Apple Podcasts. Or if you've already left a review, I'd love for you to share this episode with your business bestie. I love getting to shout out my listeners on the show, and the more listeners that we have, the more that I can help others create a thriving and sustainable business too. Thank you so much again for being a part of this community, and I can't wait to hear your takeaways from today's episode.